Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. We're going to do a bit of time travelling today, you and I. We're going to jump into our DeLorean or our blue phone box, whatever your personal preference is, I don't mind at all. We're going to rewind and we're going to go back to the year 2017 and have a look at the watch that launched this channel. And it did so precisely because it was the most controversial watch I have ever bought and reviewed. Allegedly. I've been in this house for just over a year now, and even in that time, the studio has had two distinct looks. This one, and moving backwards, the blue room, which was mercifully short-lived. I just got it totally wrong. I moved in here, I had a blank canvas, and I made a mess of it, and I had to get a consultant in to help me establish the look that you see today. Now before that, I spent 3.5 years in a house in Summerhill in Sydney where I was recording out of a spare bedroom. It was in late 2023 that I made the jump from 1080 to 4K. So as we're going back in time, we must make the jump backwards from 4K to 1080 therefore. Oh, come on, it wasn't that bad, was it? Especially as I had bought this fancy Sony camera and lenses in 2022. That was a huge upgrade, as you're about to see. Yes, if we go back a little further, you can see that it has taken me quite a while to sort out my lighting. I currently use 8 different lights simultaneously to achieve the nice soft look of my current studio. A couple of years back, not so much. The background is as grey as my hair. But hey, at least I still had a bit of colour in my hair back then. This was late 2020 when I first moved into Summerhill. Before then, my wife and I were in a smaller place in Alexandria near Sydney Park. I'm sure that if you have been watching me for a while, you remember this angled backdrop and the good old Kallax cubes from IKEA. My studio is still full of these things, but nowadays they're just used for watch storage as opposed to for decoration. Now at this point in 2019, I had already squeezed my wife out of the second bedroom entirely, sorry about that dear, but when we moved into that house in 2018, I used to set up in the living room every single time I wanted to make a video. You can see the big TV in the background. So I had to pack and unpack my gear 3 times a week. I did the 2 camera stuff there, and then I did the top down in my kitchen straddling a tripod. It was all most undignified, let me assure you. Before that, for about 6 months, I recorded from the basement of my wife's share house in Erskineville. In fact, she wasn't my wife at that time, she was my fiance. Again the cubes, again the angle, and there he is, good old Steve Irwin making his first appearance on the shelf behind me, but certainly not his last. But before even all of that, back in 2017, I was living with my flatmate and best mate in a house in Neutral Bay. This video is from the 2nd of June 2017. This is an important video for me. This was my face reveal. I had just bought a DSLR, so I thought I would celebrate by showing you all my mush. And my God, Jody, it's been a tough 7.5 years, has it not? Look at you back then with your George Michael stubble and more brown hair than white hair on your pretty little head. Time is a cruel mistress indeed. Anyway, not only was it my first face reveal, but it was also therefore the first video that I said those magic words. Let's flip the camera and get into the review. But there were videos before even that point when I was recording on an old Samsung Galaxy, I think it was a Note 5, which you could get away with in those days, nowadays not so much. And I made a series of videos from March 2017 to May 2017, 4 altogether, about a watch that at the time was the most expensive that I'd ever purchased and really helped build the channel because it was so controversial. That watch was the Gee Noo Ocean Rover. If you'd never heard of Gee Noo or you weren't into the online watch scene back then, there was a whole storm surrounding this watch. It got a lot of press at the time because the brand were offering a major discount to people who promised to do either an online or a written review. I, for example, got a 50% discount on it. Even though my channel was absolutely microscopic back then, I had a couple of dozen subscribers at best. And I was just reviewing the watches that I had in my personal collection, which I admit was pretty substantial even then because I had been binge watching pre-dinosaur TGV and buying tons of the stuff that he had been recommending, hence the Bambino. Now, if you weren't part of the scene in 2017, you won't know this watch's backstory. You'll think it is just a rather attractive mil-sub lookalike with the dimensions and proportions of a more contemporary 5-digit Rolex Submariner. And you'd be right, it is, and I absolutely fell in love with the one I bought. It had and still has got a real bit of magic about it. It looked fantastic, really rich and lustrous, way more expensive than even the full price they were asking, and it had a copy of Rolex's glide lock clasp system, meaning it wore perfectly as a bonus. But there was a rumour surrounding the company. There was chatter online that the person behind the brand was also a well-known figure in the fake Rolex scene. Various pseudonyms were involved, but people were reasonably confident even then that the person behind Gee Noo was a bit dodgy. And indeed, even in that initial unboxing impression video from March 2017, I said as much myself. There are also rumours that this is the first legitimate work of an infamous replica manufacturer, a counterfeiter. So it'll be interesting to see whether anything comes out in the wash, so to speak, in the weeks and months to come. Then there was the use of an in-house caliber, in inverted commas, that many people thought was just a rebadged Chinese-made ETA 2824 clone. Not that they would have been the only ones doing that, let's be honest. And there was also a Made in the USA label on the case back that had to be rolled back to a hand-built in America text on the dial, if I'm not mistaken, again for legal reasons. All quite controversial, and nothing generates interest like a bit of controversy, does it? Hence me making 4 videos in the space of 8 weeks about the same watch, all of which got far more views than I was getting elsewhere at the time. The Ocean Rover really did help me launch this channel. And the brand seemed to be doing okay, perhaps because of the controversy, perhaps because of their policy for offering discounts to reviewers. The brand then released a kind of stripped back version of the Ocean Rover that had the look, but to be honest, it lost most of the magic. Followed then by an Ocean Rover 2 with updates to the bezel insert and the movement. They moved away from their inverted commas in-house caliber and dropped in a Salita instead. Now I'll be honest, I may have bought my first Ocean Rover, but the brand did send me another couple of their new releases and I did not send them back. But then in May 2019, 2 whole years after I bought that first Gee Noo, the bomb dropped. Onto the forums, and I guess onto the brand as well. It did indeed all come out in the wash as I had foretold. Allegedly. Someone going by the name of Deep Dweller produced a forensic expose. It really was incredibly detailed. It must have taken weeks and weeks of full-time research that alleged that Gee Noo was indeed owned and operated by a famous, or should that be infamous, manufacturer slash retailer of fake Rolex. It was all pretty damning, particularly I felt in one way that I hadn't been aware of up until that point. Apparently, every camera lens has its own individual digital fingerprint. So every photo taken with that lens carries the fingerprint of that lens, and allegedly some of the photos used on the official Gee Noo website contained the digital fingerprint of a camera lens that was also used to take photos of fake Rolexes advertised elsewhere. Pretty damning, allegedly. But the article went a little bit too far in a couple of other areas. It doxed the person involved. It published a photo of their house and their address as part of the article, and it implicated certain other industry figures as well, shall we say, apparently without sufficient grounds to do so. The following month, I got an email from Deep Dweller, the person who wrote the article, asking if I had seen their write-up and kind of insinuating that I should either remove my videos or make a statement. I did neither of those things. I was like, nah, I paid for my Ocean Rover, at least the first one. And I mentioned in that very first video that I made about the Ocean Rover, and several times thereafter, that there were swirling rumours and controversy about the brand. Besides, court of law and court of public opinion are two very different things, and the brand, oddly enough, flatly denied the allegations. So I didn't take my videos down, I left them up there, and they're still all up there. And I hung on to an Ocean Rover for a number of years after this, but it was finally deposed, usurped from my collection by a certain Oris, a bronze bezel Diver 65. Now, I had compared the Ocean Rover to a Diver 65 in an older video, and although the Gee Noo was clearly superior in certain areas like build quality, loom and dial and hands, it was clearly inferior in others like movement, because mine had that original dubious caliber, and brand for obvious reasons. So I sold that original Ocean Rover to my good friend Ashley over in Melbourne, and knowing Ashley as I do, he's probably worn it about 8 times in the last 5 years, and it has lived most of its life in a box. He messaged me a few weeks ago asking if he could send it to me and I could sell it on for him. And I thought that as I had it back in my possession, it was the perfect opportunity for a bit of a trip down memory lane. So, where are Gee Noo now? What happened to them and to their business? Well, like all of the other shitstorms that we seem to get in this community, roughly one a year, last year's being the Timepiece Gentleman Ponzi scheme scandal, of course. I believe Mr. Farrer is currently enjoying a little bit of time in prison for his $5 million fraud. Things blow over. We move on, and Gee Noo have seemingly established themselves as a manufacturer of high quality, admittedly still homages, adding a Yachtmaster Millsub combo to their lineup recently, while still having the Ocean Rover available for sale and another model that they call the Silent Service, all very much still in the Rolex vein though, despite the owners' protestations that they were going to come up with something original. Back in 2019, they never did. And you know what? The brand owner, whoever they may actually be, recently returned the favour by buying an EREBUS. And I didn't even give them 50% off. I would have had I known it was them. I do hope they're enjoying it as much as I enjoyed their Ocean Rover. Regarding the controversy, well, it's all still alleged, of course. Nothing ever came of it from a legal standpoint as far as I know. I guess therefore there are a couple of different ways you can look at all of this, assuming you believe there is validity in the allegations. Either once a criminal, always a criminal, and if you support the brand, then you are tacitly supporting the black market and so on, or the brand is somebody's attempt to use their skills and turn an illegitimate business into a legitimate business. You know, either way, as always, the power is in our hands as consumers. We can choose when and with whom to spend our money, and we can do that in any way we like. I know people who still buy fake watches. I do not understand it myself, but that's how they choose to spend their money. My personal position on Gee Noo, I guess I'm somewhere in between those two different camps. I didn't take down my videos, but I did decline a couple of further offers from the brand a few years ago to review their newer releases. However, I did buy one Gee Noo recently. This one. I opened the box and I fell in love all over again. And I sent Ashley some money, just about the same money that he sent me to buy the watch from me 5 years ago. Regardless, or perhaps because of the controversy, this watch helped me launch this channel, and it's nice to have it back. So there you have it. Leave me a comment, let me know what your thoughts are about Gee Noo and the controversy surrounding them. Is this your first time hearing about the brand or the allegations, or did you hear about all of that back in 2019? Has time mellowed your attitudes? Should I review their new releases, or are they still in the horological sin bin for their shady beginnings? Alleged, of course. I look forward to reading the comments. While you're here, why not check out that old school unboxing on my kitchen counter back in 2017, or the head-to-head between the Gee Noo and another long-term channel favourite, the Oris Diver 65. Thanks for watching this one. I will see you in the next one.